What is cooking?
Making food using heat and ingredients.
Why do people cook?
To make delicious meals to eat.
How can we learn to cook?
By following recipes and practicing.
What are ingredients?
The things we use to make food.
What is a recipe?
Instructions for making a specific dish.
How do we measure ingredients?
With cups, spoons, and scales.
What is a cutting board?
A surface to chop ingredients on.
What are pots and pans?
Containers for cooking on the stove.
How do we mix ingredients?
With a spoon, whisk, or mixer.
What is baking?
Cooking in an oven using heat.
How do we bake cookies?
By placing dough in the oven.
What is frying?
Cooking in hot oil or fat.
How do we fry eggs?
Crack them into a hot pan.
What is grilling?
Cooking on a hot grill.
How do we grill burgers?
Place them on the grill.
What is boiling?
Cooking in hot water.
How do we boil pasta?
Cook it in boiling water.
What is sautéing?
Cooking in a small amount of oil.
How do we sauté vegetables?
Heat them in a pan.
What is a chef?
A professional cook.
How can we become better cooks?
By trying new recipes and practicing.
What is a cookbook?
A book with recipes to follow.
How can we make a sandwich?
Put ingredients between bread slices.
What is a blender?
A machine to mix ingredients.
How do we make a smoothie?
Blend fruits and yogurt together.
What is a salad?
A dish with mixed vegetables.
How do we make a salad dressing?
Mix oil, vinegar, and seasonings.
What is a rolling pin?
A tool to flatten dough.
How do we make pizza dough?
Mix flour, water, and yeast.
What is a whisk?
A tool to beat ingredients together.
How do we make scrambled eggs?
Beat eggs and cook in a pan.
What is a spatula?
A tool to flip and stir food.
How do we flip pancakes?
Use a spatula to turn them.
What is a cookie cutter?
A tool to cut cookie shapes.
How do we make cookies?
Mix dough and bake in the oven.
What is a recipe book?
A collection of recipes in a book.
How do we follow a recipe?
Read the instructions and do as it says.
What is a whisk?
A tool to mix ingredients together.
How do we make whipped cream?
Beat cream until it becomes fluffy.
What is a salad spinner?
A tool to dry salad greens.
How do we make homemade ice cream?
Mix ingredients and freeze in a machine.
What is a baking sheet?
A flat tray for baking cookies.
How do we make cupcakes?
Fill cupcake liners and bake.
What is a measuring cup?
A cup to measure liquid ingredients.
How do we make lemonade?
Mix lemon juice, water, and sugar.
What is a colander?
A bowl with small holes for draining.
How do we drain pasta?
Pour it into a colander.
What is a grill pan?
A pan with ridges for grilling.
How do we grill chicken?
Cook it on a hot grill pan.
What is a cookie sheet?
A flat tray for baking cookies.
How do we make chocolate chip cookies?
Mix dough and bake on a sheet.
What is a peeler?
A tool to remove skin from fruits.
How do we peel an apple?
Use a peeler to remove the skin.
What is a cupcake liner?
A paper liner for baking cupcakes.
How do we make muffins?
Fill muffin cups and bake.
What is a pastry brush?
A brush to apply sauce or glaze.
How do we brush butter on bread?
Use a pastry brush to spread it.
What is a garlic press?
A tool to crush garlic cloves.
How do we add garlic to a recipe?
Crush it with a garlic press.
What is a mixing bowl?
A bowl to mix ingredients together.
How do we make pancakes?
Mix batter and cook on a griddle.
What is a cutting knife?
A knife to cut ingredients.
How do we slice tomatoes?
Use a cutting knife to cut them.
What is a cheese grater?
A tool to grate cheese into pieces.
How do we grate carrots?
Use a cheese grater to shred them.
What is a strainer?
A tool to separate liquids from solids.
How do we strain pasta?
Pour it into a strainer to remove water.
What is a whisk?
A tool to beat eggs or cream.
How do we make fluffy scrambled eggs?
Beat eggs with a whisk before cooking.
What is a serving spoon?
A spoon for serving food onto plates.
How do we serve soup?
Use a serving spoon to scoop it.
What is a cutting board?
A surface for cutting fruits and vegetables.
How do we chop onions?
Place them on a cutting board and slice.
What is a casserole dish?
A dish for baking meals in the oven.
How do we make lasagna?
Layer pasta and sauce in a casserole dish.
What is a lemon squeezer?
A tool to extract juice from lemons.
How do we squeeze lemons?
Use a lemon squeezer to get the juice.
What is a ladle?
A long-handled spoon for serving soup.
How do we serve stew?
Use a ladle to scoop it into bowls.
What is a griddle?
A flat surface for cooking pancakes.
How do we make pancakes?
Cook batter on a hot griddle.
What is a pastry cutter?
A tool to cut butter into flour.
How do we make pie crust?
Use a pastry cutter to mix butter and flour.
What is a meat tenderizer?
A tool to make meat more tender.
How do we tenderize steak?
Use a meat tenderizer to pound it.
What is a food processor?
A machine to chop and blend ingredients.
How do we make salsa?
Blend tomatoes and onions in a food processor.
What is a rolling pin?
A cylinder for rolling out dough.
How do we make pie crust?
Roll out dough with a rolling pin.
What is a pot holder?
A cloth to protect hands from hot pots.
How do we handle hot pots?
Use a pot holder to protect our hands.
What is a baking dish?
A dish for baking casseroles or desserts.
How do we make brownies?
Bake the batter in a baking dish.
What is a whisk?
A tool to mix ingredients together.
How do we make whipped cream?
Beat cream with a whisk until fluffy.
What is a strainer?
A tool to drain water from pasta.
How do we drain spaghetti?
Pour it into a strainer.
What is a grater?
A tool to shred cheese or vegetables.
How do we grate carrots?
Rub them on a grater to make small pieces.
What is a measuring spoon?
A spoon to measure small amounts of ingredients.
How do we measure vanilla extract?
Use a measuring spoon to get the right amount.
What is a cutting board?
A surface to chop fruits and vegetables.
How do we chop onions?
Place them on a cutting board and slice.
What is a blender?
A machine to blend ingredients together.
How do we make a smoothie?
Blend fruits and yogurt in a blender.
What is a peeler?
A tool to remove skin from fruits and vegetables.
How do we peel a potato?
Use a peeler to remove the skin.
What is a colander?
A bowl with small holes for draining water.
How do we drain cooked pasta?
Pour it into a colander to remove the water.
What is a rolling pin?
A tool to flatten dough.
How do we roll out pie crust?
Use a rolling pin to flatten the dough.
What is a spatula?
A tool to flip and turn food.
How do we flip pancakes?
Use a spatula to turn them over.
What is a whisk?
A tool to mix ingredients together.
How do we whisk eggs?
Beat them with a whisk until blended.
What is a baking sheet?
A flat tray for baking cookies.
How do we bake chocolate chip cookies?
Place the dough on a baking sheet and bake.
What is a measuring cup?
A cup to measure liquid or dry ingredients.
How do we measure flour?
Use a measuring cup to get the right amount.
What is a blender?
A machine to blend ingredients together.
How do we make a milkshake?
Blend milk and ice cream in a blender.
What is a pastry brush?
A brush to apply sauce or glaze.
How do we brush melted butter on bread?
Use a pastry brush to spread it evenly.
What is a sieve?
A tool to separate fine particles from liquids.
How do we sift flour?
Pour it through a sieve to remove lumps.
What is a cupcake liner?
A paper liner for baking cupcakes.
How do we bake cupcakes?
Place the batter in cupcake liners and bake.